Well, hello everyone. Well, the warm days are getting warmer and summer is just about here. And don't you hate it when you get inside of your vehicle and you turn the AC on and you find out it's not working only because all your Freon has leaked out of your system and you're going to have to replace it. Now, replacing it is not a big deal, but if you replace it, if it leaks out over a few days, well, you're going to have to keep replacing it. So, I want to show you how I find most of my Freon leaks in my automobiles, and I know you can go out and buy the dye in the can and buy a special flashlight and take it inside where it's dark and shine around and find the leak just by the dye and all that. Or you can go ahead and put some more Freon in it and put the dye in with that, and then get a flashlight and try to find your leaks. But that usually costs money. Now, well, how I usually do it here is I have a little compressor and I have a hose here. Now, I've had a couple of these little connectors here laying around forever, and I've simply just shot some air back into the system and I've pressurized it a little bit. Now, if you have a newer car, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but you still can go ahead and put maybe a can of Freon in it, or half a can and a half. You can get it for about $4 to $5 a can now. The stuff's really cheap, and if you do that, then you won't have to worry about putting moisture back into your system. But I'm not too worried about it because I've had this system open already, and I've had Freon in it in the past, and it's gotten cold, but like I said, the system just leaks out. So what I've done, I have gone ahead and, like I said, put a little pressurized air into the system. And like I said, if you don't have a compressor, don't worry. Just go out and buy you a can of Freon and stick it in. Just put a little bit of Freon in the system so it'll pressurize a little bit, so you can start looking for leaks. And we'll put this off to the side for now. And to speed up the video, I'm not going to show you everything, how I put the air in it and all that. But it's pretty simple. When you go to put your Freon in, they give you a you have one of these guys, and you stick it on the low side, which is the smaller side, and this is the only side that this hose will fit on. And then sometimes they give you a gauge and sometimes they don't, but you can get a gauge with one of these hoses now for less than $20 and a can of Freon, which is a really good deal. So you don't really need the gauge, but I definitely will have to have a specialized hose to put the Freon in from the can. So what I like to do once I get the system pressurized, I just get some soapy water and just start spraying connections and so forth, and we'll start back here in the back. And I'm hoping the light should be okay today because it's pretty bright out here, and everywhere you see a connector, even right here where you put the Freon in on the little tube there, the high side, you got to take off the little connectors, and they are kind of sitting right there. Just spray all your connectors, everything you see that has a seal. Now, my compressor's down low, but I should be able to get the Freon down there. I think you can see that. And we'll spray all those connectors down there. Just soap them up really, really good. And let's see, put a little more back here. I don't think I got that. And also, make sure you check your connectors here where they are fitted from the factory, from the metal or the aluminum into the rubber hose. And I've got one connector on the front of the cooler down here on the bottom. I'm going to spray really good. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but I'll do my best to hold the camera here. And I'm shooting this on my little cell phone out here today. It's pretty hot. And I've got one more line that comes over here and goes down here on the bottom. And I know you're probably not going to be able to see that, but we'll look at that here in a second. So now I'm just going to kind of let my soap kind of sit here for a few minutes. And maybe go back around over here and double check, make sure I didn't miss anything. Now, on your compressor, you have two hoses that are bolted to it on most compressors, and you really have to soap them up with a lot of soap. You may have a little difficult getting into them, but if you get enough soapy water on them, you'll be able to see those bubbles. So hit this one more time, and we'll kind of let it sit. Now, it does also help if you have a mirror like this to be able to look up under some things that you normally couldn't see. Just kind of look up under there and get an idea of all these hoses. If there's any leaks or anything, you can see. I can see up under that pretty good there. And right now, no leaks there, no bubbles. High side, no bubbles. And let's just go ahead. The soap's been on here long enough, so let's go ahead and look and see if we see any bubbles. Okay, I don't see anything there. And I don't even hear any air leaking. In most cases, you won't hear air leaking. We'll see nothing there. Nothing there. Down here on the bottom. That looks good, and that connector going in the back of the radiator right there, the cooler. I don't see any bubbles there. Let me get a little more soap and put on there. On a hot day, this stuff evaporates kind of fast, so you got to be careful about that. No bubbles. Let's go over here to this other one. And I see bubbles, folks. Oops. Yep, I see bubbles. Over here's my leak. Now, if you look closely, in the very bottom down there, I see it leaking. And I can actually kind of hear it now. So there's where my leak is. So what I'll have to do is take this battery tray out of here, get my hands down there and get a little socket and pull this connector off on that radiator, the cooler part of the air conditioning there, and see exactly what's going on. Probably a bad seal. Now, I got a feeling that someone's probably worked on the engine. Someone's put a new radiator on it, and that radiator is bolted to the front of this cooler. And they've probably either had that disconnected down there. They've probably taken that bolt out and not torqued it right or put it back properly, or the seal's gotten torn. So that's where my leak is, right down there. So what we'll do here in a few minutes, we'll go ahead and take this battery tray out and get a better look at it. But this is how I find most of my air conditioning leaks. And rare occasions, if you have a stick or something that has gotten lodged up into your cooler on the front of your vehicle, always check that, because I've seen cases where stuff will fly up and poke holes into this, and if it does, well, then you pretty much have to replace the entire cooler on your cooling system. So let me go ahead and we'll pull this off here and we'll get a good look at that leak. All right, folks, I got the tray out and there's my leak. You can see some of the bubbles on the bottom there, but I can stick my hand down here, stick my ear down here, and I can hear it leaking. If I stick the camera close, you might be able to hear it. But that's where my leak is, right there. And lots of bubbles on the bottom. That's just why it's always good to have, you know, something like this mirror. You can really see, and you can see all the bubbles there on the bottom. I think you can see it there. But this is definitely where my leak is, so someone's probably had this off. So I'll take the bolt out, clean it up, and put it back together and see if it's going to work. It should work. It's the only leak I can find. This is how I find most of my air conditioning leaks in my systems. Now, like I said earlier, it's not recommended that you put too much air in the system. I usually put about 25 to 30 pounds of air, because that's what the Freon calls for. Usually the car usually calls for about 25 to 30 pounds of Freon. You just got to look at your sticker on your vehicle and find out what you need to do. But if you're just going to put regular Freon in it, maybe a can, just to test the system and see if you can find the leak, well, you don't have to really worry about anything. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull this off, clean it up, and put it back together, and hopefully I'll have air conditioning working pretty soon. I don't know if you can see on the bottom down there, but you can see it moving, bubbling there. That's definitely where my leak is. So let me go ahead and take it apart and clean it up, and maybe put a new seal on it. And also, while you're at it, make sure you find your compressor, get under there and take this bottle and spray that compressor really good all over, because I've seen in some cases where you can have a hairline crack in those compressors and they will cause leaks, but that is very, very rare. Just so you cover all the bases, it's always a good idea to try that also. Alright, now you can see I got it off there, and someone's already put the dye in it, but that's fine. And so what I'm going to do is just clean it up. I don't see anything really wrong with the seal. It looks fine. So they may not have gotten this very tight, so we just may clean it up really good and stick it back together, see if it still leaks. Now, I am a little concerned. There's a piece behind that goes into the radiator, but I saw all my bubbles up here on the front, so I'll stick it back together and I'll put some Freon in it and see if it'll work okay. And I will give you guys an update in a separate video if that took care of the issue. But this is how I typically like to find my air conditioner leaks, and you can do the same thing. And like I said, don't over pressurize your system. Don't do any more than 30 pounds, but if you're going to use regular cans of Freon, go for it. And I think they make the dye that you can see in the daytime, just like that. I think that's probably what that is. I know they make it at night where you use a flashlight, so and you can try some stop leak. But this is how you can check your system for leaks, just by using some soap and water And it's amazing what this stuff will tell you sometimes, those little bubbles. So that's it, guys. I'll give you guys an update later on the system once I get it back together and let you know how it's working. So thanks for watching, and hopefully this advice will help you out. Until my next video, I'll see you then. Later.